Coming up on New Day at Arirang, South Korea looking at another 2,500 new cases of COVID-19. Also, from today, people can make same-day reservations for booster shots using jabs left over by people who missed their bookings. Chinese President Xi Jinping wins the Communist Party's backing for a landmark doctrine, potentially allowing him to rule China for as long as he wants. Watchers expect an intense propaganda campaign to follow. Plus, responding to soaring international oil prices and skyrocketing inflation, South Korea slashes fuel taxes by 20%. The cuts will remain in effect for the next 6 months.
Hello and welcome to this Friday edition of New Day at Arirang. It's 8 a.m. on November 12th here in Seoul, South Korea. The weekend is almost here, Mark.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Kim Mo-gyan.
And I'm Mark Broom. We can't wait for the weekend here. I'm sure the same goes for all of you out there. Over the next hour, we will take a look at the big news stories of the day and get expert insights on the issues facing Korea and the world. And we start with COVID-19 situation here in South Korea. It has been nearly a couple of weeks since the government started its gradual return to normal life here in South Korea.
Yes, and while the numbers of infections and critically ill patients go up, authorities say the current uptick isn't overburdening the health system. Now, if numbers continue to rise, though, we might not be able to move to the second step of the COVID-19 exit strategy.
For one more time this week, we are very happy to say that our Shin Ye-eun is joining us in the studio. A wonderful good morning to you, Ye-eun.
Good morning.
Well, Yeon, let's start, as always, with the number of daily cases that's expected today.
So we're expecting to see Friday's figure hover at the 2,500s. Up to 9 p.m. yesterday, 2,153 cases were identified. This is 115 more than the number at the same time last week.
And do we expect the number of critically ill patients to go up as well? This has, as we've been reporting, becoming a rising concern here in South Korea.
It definitely has, and throughout the week, we've seen the number of critically ill patients go up, reaching another all-time high on Thursday. The tally was 473. To that, KDCA Chief Chung Eun-kyung cautioned that if the number keeps rising, the country could face difficulties moving to the second stage of the gradual return to normal scheme set for December. At the same time, authorities say the uptick is still within the medical system's current capacity, and there are plenty of hospital beds available. That's why they said now is not the time to discuss emergency plans that would reverse the easing of measures. They also attributed the number of critically ill patients to the length of this current wave of the pandemic.
We are seeing numbers go up because the pandemic has gone on for so long. That's why we also recognize this can affect our current medical capacity and are asking for people at high risk to get their booster shots.
Authorities are also considering reducing the interval between booster shots after the original jab from 6 months to 5, specifically targeting senior citizens. As of now, those over 60, younger people working in the healthcare center, and Janssen recipients have been getting the extra jab. And to make booster shots even more accessible, from today, authorities are allowing target groups to reserve leftover vaccines using Naver and KakaoTalk on the day they want their jabs.
Well, Yeon, we've heard that a South Korean company has seen some progress in terms of antibody therapies. Tell us more on that.
Right, so South Korea's Celltrion just received the green light from the European Medicines Agency for its antibody therapy called Recurona. Europe's drug regulators recommend the treatment for adults who do not require extra oxygen support yet are still at the high risk of severe illness. It's now just awaiting approval from the European Commission for marketing authorization, and Recurona has been found to lead to fewer hospitalizations and deaths. It's a monoclonal antibody that attaches itself to the virus and mimics natural human antibodies to fight infections.
Now, experts keep telling us that treatments are something that should be used alongside vaccines, and we're hearing from a senior official at Moderna, one of the big vaccine companies, of course, some information regarding the efficacy of their vaccines to fight these so-called breakthrough cases. What did they have to say?
Right, so Moderna said its COVID-19 vaccine actually has fewer breakthrough cases compared to Pfizer. CNBC reported on Thursday that Moderna's CMO touted data from the CDC that showed 86 breakthrough cases per 100,000 for Moderna recipients and 135 from Pfizer recipients. The CMO's comments came following discussions on the high percentage of young men reporting heart inflammation after getting Moderna shots, and data from France on males aged 12 to 29 showed there were 13.3 cases of myocarditis per 100,000 Moderna recipients, with only 2.7 among Pfizer recipients. But the CMO defended use of the vaccine, saying the protection it offers against hospitalization and death outweighs the myocarditis risk. He said unvaccinated people are at an 11-fold increased risk of dying, whereas reported heart conditions were generally mild.
Well, all right. Thank you, Yin, for your reports throughout the week. We appreciate it. Hope to see you again soon.
Thank you so much.
Now, South Korea is on an emergency footing to try and cope with the acute shortage of a special chemical solution which powers diesel vehicles like trucks and buses.
Yes, various measures have been formulated to ensure essential transport, such as buses and ambulances, can continue running without interruption. Kim Ji-yeon with this report.
The South Korean government has stepped up efforts to make sure those in need of urea solution can get their supply of the substance essential for the operation of diesel vehicles and various other modes of transportation in the country. The Ministry of Economy and Finance said Thursday it has begun producing 2 million liters of urea solution. Buses, street cleaning vehicles, and freight trucks are eligible to receive some of this supply starting this week, which is expected to help the operation of an estimated 165,000 units and last about 10 days. Vessels deemed critical for national interests are also being considered to receive this fluid. As of now, the government plans to distribute imported fluid from Australia to some 2,300 ambulances starting Friday, so that they can run without shortage concerns for up to 4 months. Imported urea from China for industrial use of around 2,700 tons are slated to arrive in South Korea's Yeosu port this Saturday. Meanwhile, imports of urea solution for automobiles are expected to depart from China next Thursday. The Economy and Finance Ministry also said a local company has inked a deal to purchase 3,000 tons of urea, and another company plans to purchase 250,000 liters of urea solution from 2 different Vietnamese companies. The South Korean government aims to lower tariffs on urea imports from now on in a bid to diversify import channels of other key materials to prevent a similar situation in the future. This aligns with the advice given by experts to find a solution by looking at the root cause of the problem.
For example, when China started having issues in importing coal from Australia, we could have analyzed what materials are produced from coal. Coal produces lots of ammonia, essential for urea production. It's important to prevent a situation like this moving forward.
Chinese ambassador to South Korea, Shin Hai-ming, agreed that China will work towards resolving the shortages of the material in South Korea. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
A senior U.S. State Department official is in Seoul for a series of talks and meetings with South Korean officials. During his meetings Thursday, the allies discussed working together to free up supply chain bottlenecks as well as issues related to North Korea. Our foreign affairs correspondent Yoon Jang-min tells us more.
Senior officials from South Korea and the U.S. sat down for talks on global supply chain issues as the U.S. bolsters partnership with its allies and partners, seemingly against China's growing dominance. U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs Daniel Crittenbrink is currently in Seoul for a 3-day trip until Friday. He met Trade Ministry Director General Chung Dae-jin in Seoul on Thursday. Seoul's Trade Ministry said the officials discussed bilateral supply chain cooperation as a follow-up to the Moon-Biden summit in May. The areas of cooperation included semiconductors and electric car batteries, and they also discussed the need for supply chain resilience following the U.S.-led supply chain meeting with G20 leaders a few weeks ago. The ministry added that the South Korean official relayed the Korean government's stance on recent data requests to global chipmakers from Washington and U.S. tariffs on steel. South Korea has been asking the U.S. to increase the import quota for Korean steel following a recent U.S.-EU deal to end a dispute over U.S. steel and aluminum tariffs. Brink also met the Deputy Minister for Economic Diplomacy at Seoul's Foreign Ministry, Lee Sung-ho, to discuss the economy and security issues. On the same day, the American diplomat met his South Korean counterpart Yeo Seung-bae and First Vice Foreign Minister Choi Jong-gun at Seoul's Foreign Affairs Ministry. Their discussions included ways to bring North Korea back to the denuclearization talks, cooperation on the climate, and the fight against COVID-19. In the readout, there was no mention of the Korean government's end-of-war declaration proposal. The Seoul government is pushing the adoption of the declaration involving the two Koreas and the U.S. as a means to bring the North back to the negotiation table. When it comes to the end-of-war declaration, Seoul's Foreign Minister Chung Eui-yong said on Thursday at the National Assembly that Seoul and Washington had wrapped up a significant portion of their coordination. Chung said South Korea and the U.S. have agreed on the issue in principle, but added he's not so optimistic on actual adoption because that would require a longer process. While in Seoul, Brink also met the presidential candidate from South Korea's ruling Democratic Party, Lee Jae-myung, and will meet the candidate from the main opposition People Power Party, Yoon Sung-yeol, on Friday. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
China's Communist Party has been holding a high-level committee meeting all week in Beijing. On Thursday, as widely expected, the committee members passed a resolution highlighting Xi Jinping's role. This makes it almost certain Xi will be granted an unprecedented third term as president and could see him remaining in power for as long as he wants. Lee Kyung-eun with the details.
China's ruling Communist Party approved a historical resolution that will help secure President Xi Jinping's leadership for at least another 5 years. Xinhua News reported on Thursday that the pivotal document came at the end of the party's Central Committee's meeting, or plenum, that ran for 4 days behind closed doors in Beijing. The top political meeting brought together senior party officials who choose new leaders every 5 years. At the meeting, they approved the decision that marks the party's 100-year history and achievements and enshrines Xi's role as leader. An official summary read, under Mr. Xi's leadership, China has made historic achievements and undergone a historic transformation, including the economic success, foreign policy, fighting pollution, and containing COVID-19. The historical resolution is only the third of its kind since the party was founded in 1921. The previous resolutions were delivered by former leaders Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping and had the effect of consolidating their leaderships. A similar outcome is likely as it comes 1 year before Xi is expected to secure an unprecedented third term as party leader at a Congress that is held once every 5 years. There is no apparent rival in view. Experts have pointed to China's constitutional change that removes the two-term limit on the presidency and a recent push of propaganda praising the leader as possible evidence. The official media briefing on the meeting is set for Friday. Lee Kyung-eun, Arirang News.
The U.S. is stressing its rivalry with China in the Indo-Pacific does not have to turn into a new Cold War, adding Washington is currently doubling down on its presence in the region. The remarks made by U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan came in response to Chinese President Xi Jinping, who said Thursday that the Asia-Pacific region must not return to the tensions of the Cold War era. In a video message to a CEO forum held on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, President Xi also warned that attempts to form small circles on geopolitical grounds are bound to fail.
South Korea beat the UAE 1-0 on Thursday evening, taking the squad another step closer to the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. With 3 wins and 2 draws, South Korea is second in Group A of the final Asian qualifying round. Kim Hyo-sun tells us more.
South Korea defeated UAE 1-0 in their World Cup qualifying match on Thursday, moving an inch closer to Qatar 2022. During the first national team match in South Korea without any spectator restrictions since the onset of COVID-19, the Daegu Warriors dominated their opponents from start to finish at Goyang Stadium in Gyeonggi-do Province before some 30,000 fans. However, the only goal of the game came in the 36th minute when Wolverhampton Wanderers' Hwang Hee-chan converted a penalty for South Korea. Captain So Heung-min hit the woodwork twice, and forward Cho Gyu-sung hit the post once. With 3 wins and 2 draws in Group A, South Korea improved to 11 points, maintaining their second-place position in the group after Iran claimed a dramatic 2-1 win over Lebanon. South Korea's next game is against Iraq next Tuesday, with Qatar serving as a neutral venue. The top 2 teams from the group automatically secure a ticket to the World Cup, and South Korea has been to every World Cup since 1986. In Group B, Japan beat Vietnam on Thursday in Hanoi. It was the 5th consecutive defeat for the team led by South Korean coach Park Hang-seo, leaving them rock bottom of Group B. With the win, Japan moved to 3rd with 9 points, narrowing the gap with Saudi Arabia and Australia. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Now, before we continue on with the rest of the day's news, we're going to cross over to an update on the weather on this Friday from our weathercaster Lee Ji-hyun, who has ventured outside the studio today to give us the details.
Yes, the capital is waking up to the coldest morning of the season, and Ji-hyun is braving the cold for us at one of Seoul's busiest commuter hubs this morning at Gangnam Station. Ji-hyun, are people well bundled up? How are things looking?
Good morning, Morgan and Mark. You know, what a week it has been, a sudden transition from autumn into winter with unexpected early snowfall. I hope you didn't catch a cold or anything. And to answer Morgan's question, well, people here at Gangnam Station, commuters, are very well wrapped up to cope with the cold snap, better bundled up than I am for sure. And one thing I can tell you though, that there is a warm-up coming up for this weekend, so hang in there for just one more day. But for now, let's talk about today's weather conditions. Sub-zero morning temperatures to start the day in the capital, but it feels more like -3 degrees Celsius. And I think it's colder here at Gangnam Station. Mountainous regions in Gyeonggi-do Province are far colder, of course. The Seorak Mountain going down to below -10 degrees Celsius. And another sign that we do know that we are going into winter is dryness in the air. A dry weather advisory is in place along parts of the East Coast, so if you plan to go hiking this weekend, be extra careful with anything that can start a fire. Meanwhile, mountainous regions on Jeju Island remain under heavy snow advisory. Speaking of which, mountainous regions including Jirisan could see some snowfall instead of rain due to colder temperatures. The rest of the southern provinces will be seeing some light rainfall. It's a colder start for most regions. Daejeon starting out the day at 1 degree, Gwangju at 2 degrees under sunny skies. Highs will be similar to slightly lower than yesterday's Seoul going up to 8 degrees. Daegu topping out at 11 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Well, stay warm today. It's going to chilly all day long. That's all for now. I'll be back with more at the end of newscast.
Now it's time for On Point, where we speak to experts to delve deeper into the biggest news stories in the spotlight right now. South Korea has a number of quirks that make it quite the place of interest for many international tourists, and a place that fascinates non-Koreans who just love Korean culture. One of these quirks is that the 14th day of every month is a kind of unofficial holiday, I guess, of sorts in South Korea. They're considered off the calendar and aren't like days like we see during the Lunar New Year or Chuseok holidays or the numerous so-called red days where most of us, if we're lucky, have the day off work due to it being a national holiday.
Well, It wasn't the 14th yesterday, but it was November 11th, which means it was Pepero Day, a day when school students, co-workers, and couples pass out boxes of long chocolate-covered cookie sticks. For more on this phenomenon and the quirky nature of what is known as day marketing in Korea, we are joined by Lee Hong-ju, professor of consumer economics at Sookmyung Women's University. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning.
Now, Professor, since it was only yesterday, let's start with Pepero Day. For our international viewers, can you give us the backstory and how much do you think the manufacturers of these products make on Pepero Day compared to a regular day?
In Korea, so Pepero is very thin, elongated cookies that look like the number one. Pepero Day started as a fashion that spread among Korean middle school girls, so they could become slim like as Pepero cookies. After that, the companies that manufactured the sold Pepero cookies used this fat as a marketing strategy, and they become the widespread anniversary. It started around 1997, and now it is one of the representative anniversaries that everyone knows, regardless of age of genders. In the past, Pepero Day had a strong meaning of exchanging Pepero cookies between lovers as a sign of affection or conveying one's hurt to lovers one. However, recently, the scope has been expanded to include friends and family members, and it is recognized as one of the Korean representative anniversaries.
Yeah,
so in addition, in studies of the increase of sales of chocolate and chocolate confectioneries in the week before the anniversary at the largest supermarket like as a Walmart in Korea, it was found that the sales increased 9 times on Valentine's Days, 7 times on White Days, and 83 times on Pepper Days. That is enormous increase in sales.
Yeah, we'll touch a bit more on White Day in just a minute. And Mokyeon, thank you for the pepero you gave me yesterday. I didn't eat it, I gave it to my kids. Because unlike what they say, it doesn't actually make you thin. But as you mentioned, the 14th of every month is recognized by more people in South Korea as a way to celebrate love or bemoan the lack thereof. For example, March 14th is White Day, which you touched upon. Since it's one of the more unusual ones, can you explain the concept of White Day for people watching who may not have heard of it?
If you search for White Day in web browsers such as Google or Neighbors, you will find the definition saying it is a day when you give the candy to a friend or lovers and convey your love. It mainly known as the day when men gave candy to women. I'm sure that you know the origin of Valentine's Days. However, the most influential theory explaining the origin of White Day is believed to be that Japanese candy manufacturers got the idea from the Valentine's Days. When Valentine's Days immigrated in the 1960s from the Western cultures to Japan, it is said that Japanese companies started the first White Days on March 14 in 1980s by launching the return trend. The candy industry in Japan began to manufacture marshmallow and cookies and candies as a gift. After that, it became a custom for men to give candies to women on White Day. At first, it was mainly popular among young people in Japan. Of course, in addition, the various other origin of White Days are explained, but this is most widely believed explanation. However, only 3 countries celebrate these days, which is officially named White Days, and those are Korea, Japan, and China. So in addition, these days, the main issues that Valentine's Day and White Days are criticized as marketing tools for retailers to promote consumption of sweets by young men and women.
All right, there could be some kind of concerns. But aside from White Day, Professor, can you tell us more about some other unofficial holidays that happen on the 14th of other months? Do any of them stand out as especially unusual or bizarre?
Yes, our culture that celebrates a specific day, such as Valentine's Day or Halloween, is called the day cultures. The size of the day cultures in Korea cannot be accurately estimated, but it extended to approximately 30 days or years or more. However, first of every month is relatively well known, such as the February 14 is the Valentine's Day, and March 14 is the White Day, and there is a Black Day on April 1st, the day when people without rubbers eat jjajangmyeon. As you know, that jjajangmyeon means is the Chinese noodle in black bean sauce, and there is a Rose Day is on May 1st, when roses are presented to a special friend. Besides that, we have fun day cultures. To introduce a few, March 3rd is the Pork Belly Day, and May 2nd is the Cucumber Day. Samgyeopsal Day is the because March 3rd is the pronounced like as pork belly in Korea, and the Oi Day is the created because May 2nd is the like and Korea pronunciation is of cucumber.
Right. Okay, finally, if you wouldn't mind keeping this one as brief as you can for us, because we don't have much time left, but what do you make of people out there who say these days are just nothing more than just cash grabs by companies?
It is one of the marketing strategies that utilize the social behavior pattern for anniversary, which ceremonially established in our lives in corporate marketing. In other words, it is marketing strategy that aims to influence consumer economics activities by creating social atmospheres and encourage consumption based on the long-standing social and the cultural characteristics of celebrating anniversary. Therefore, in terms of creating atmospheres where you can naturally communicate with others through the day cultures, these artificial holidays can be an advantage. However, these are many opinions that day cultural actings as marketing events are not needed, and the specific companies or products being promoted should be avoided. In particular, day marketing by companies these days is overly commercialized. In addition, not everyone welcomes an official holiday like a Pepper Day. It is also true that celebrating anniversaries such as Pepper Day impose a burden on people financially. Therefore, consumers should not be bounded by companies' promotional strategies and think about how to actively utilize net functions of days marketing through wise consumption. Also, I think the reasons such as marketing is getting attention in Korea is the marketing strategy that reflects the characteristics of Korean society that has been effectively deployed. In Korean society, day, which means the anniversary, has social seriousness. Of course, these characteristics are not only evident in Korea, but also many other cultures around the world. So people who participate in the day event show the characteristics of being immersed in or focusing on the event through the behavior of participating in event. In other words, through these actions, people also feel a sense of belong to a group of which
Professor, sorry to cut you off there, but we are unfortunately running out of time, but we do appreciate your insights.
Oh, yeah,
I did ask you to keep your answer short, but it seemed longer than the others. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us, and hopefully we'll speak to you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
From today, South Korea is slashing fuel taxes by a record 20%. The cuts will remain in effect for the next 6 months. The price cut is in place temporarily in a bid to ease inflation as oil prices surge. A liter of gasoline will now cost 164 won, or roughly 14 cents, a liter of diesel around 10 cents, and LPG around 3 cents a liter. The measures end on April 30th, 2022, and are expected to save taxpayers $2.1 billion. South Korea previously cut fuel taxes in November 2018, back then by 15%. South Korea's export and import prices rose in October compared to the previous month. The BOK says the export price index edged up 1.6% to a little over 116. Now, this marks the 11th straight month of gains. The increase was primarily due to the higher prices of industrial goods, such as coal and petroleum products. And import prices climbed 4.8%, led by rising costs of raw materials and intermediate goods, including primary metal products. Disney Plus is launched its long-awaited streaming service in South Korea, providing Disney's full suite of famous entertainment brands from Pixar as well as Marvel and Star Wars franchises. The launch is expected to heat up competition in the local content streaming market. Netflix is by far the biggest service in South Korea, with almost 8 million monthly active users as of June. Disney Plus will also offer original content and South Korean productions through its Star brand. It has set its subscription fee in South Korea at about $8.50 a month.
Now, Insadong has been Korea's center of arts and culture ever since the Joseon dynasty. This weekend, the neighborhood is holding its annual antique art fair. Kim Bo-kyung reports.
100 years of history and hidden stories in every item. Recently, local art fairs have enjoyed great attention amid the ongoing art collecting boom. And Insadong, too, has geared up to invite people with its best-known characteristic, antiques. There is a reason why Insadong is considered the center of traditional art. Dohwaseol, the spring government office for art, was at the site during the Joseon dynasty, being in charge of painting portraits and pictures of ceremonies. Naturally, renowned artists and art galleries moved nearby, forming a distinctive traditional art center.
To foster the place as the focal point of traditional art, the government has designated Insadong as a cultural district since 2002. It has encouraged 5 sectors: antiques, galleries, picture mounts, craft, papers, brushes, and ink.
The neighborhood's rare art is now out on display. Nearly 20 galleries and boutiques have brought their best antiques out to the fair at the Central Museum of Annyeong Insadong. Antique collectors say the unique characteristics of antiques that distinguishes them from other art sectors is their rich history.
Antiques need to have historical, artistic value along with scarcity. Historical value not only affects their price, but also shows the art of that period. For example, porcelain written as made in 1489 could let us know the trend of that era.
Also at the fair is a special exhibition on Korean color paintings, royal court paintings, and folk paintings called minhwa from working-class homes during the Joseon period. A wide range of antiques along with unique color paintings could perhaps lead visitors to find a new passion for something old. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Seoul City is opening a pop-up store filled with a range of Seoul-related goodies. There are some 50 unique products like laptop pouches, as well as fashion wear designed by 19 South Korean brands and 2 teams of college students. Visit the store on Thursday until next Sunday in Yeonnam-dong near the Gyeonggi Line, Forest Road Park. There'll also be a live commerce event on Naver Shopping Live.
Welcome to Dialogue this week. In this corner, we invite guests from in and out of Korea to talk about a wide variety of issues ranging from culture and sports to the latest trends around the world. The size of the luxury goods market has been rising rapidly over the past few years. With soaring demand, prices of luxury goods from designer brands have seen an evident rise across the globe. So for instance, Chanel raised the price of selected items for the fourth time this year alone, and Prada and Louis Vuitton also raised price tags 5 times, much more than its previous average. But even so, the craze for luxury products isn't fading. In fact, luxury brands saw rapid double-digit sales throughout this period. So what is it that consumers see and get out of these expensive luxury items despite the skyrocketing price? For an insider's view, we are joined by Park Se-jung, a freelance announcer who's a longtime Chanel lover, via Skype. Good morning, Se-jung. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hi.
And for a more in-depth analysis on the situation, Lee Jang-hyuk, professor of marketing at Korea University Business School, is also joining us via Skype. Thank you, Professor, for joining us.
Good morning.
Morning. Now let's start our discussion with Se-jung. It seems inevitable that people in modern society see huge appeal in luxury goods. It can often be a sign of success, status, or wealth. I heard that you also have your own collection of items. Can you share with us what significance does your collection have?
I do believe all women in the world, I mean, not only women, including men and transgender or even non-binary people, everyone likes beautiful things and everyone has to have the right to be beautiful if they want. And the luxury brands are the representatives of something beautiful and sophisticated. So I think people instinctively see an appeal in luxury goods. For me, when I turned 19, I watched haute couture fashion show on TV for the first time, and I just had a crush on the dresses. So I started reading books and studying of the designers of the brands, and I found the value of the history and the originality of each brand. And when I was a college student, my mom bought me luxury bags when I got a good score on my test or something. So it was the first step. And since I started making money, I have collected Chanel items especially because I love Gabrielle Chanel's philosophy. I believe she contributed to enhancing women's rights, and I also have a dream to be an influential person to improve women's rights. So my Chanel collection is like showing my respect to Chanel and taking a step forward for my dream.
Wow. Well, I heard that you also wrote a book addressing the value you've seen in the brand, like you've mentioned. What was the message that you wanted to deliver to the readers?
Yes, I wrote a book of Chanel and the value of the brand. As we all know, people love luxury brands and want to have the luxury goods. But at the same time, we think they're too expensive, and sometimes they're just proving how much money we have or how much we are enjoying the upper class life. But I wanted to say the luxury brands does not only mean that kind of things, especially Chanel is not like that. Gabrielle Chanel managed to create her own empire in a world ruled by men, and she definitely changed the world fashion industry. She established the basic modern women's look, and she invented women's suit, which has a military-inspired jacket and was made for action. And she said women should be pretty and free at the same time, and free to move our arms and walk fast with our times. So Chanel's jacket is not very tight. It's free to move. And she invented the little black dress as well, and means a lot to women. So I just wanted to let people know about this value of this brand.
Right. I have to say, I have to apologize for the noise you're hearing. We have a construction issue here. We apologize for that, but we'll make sure it goes away soon. Anyway, despite the intentions of Coco Chanel that you've mentioned, the brand has become an empire of its own. And while luxury labels do tend to, raise their prices every 12 months, since the start of the pandemic, Chanel has already hiked their prices for the 4th time, like I mentioned a while ago. Does this change your stance regarding loyalty to the brand Now, since you're a consumer of this brand, what do you think of the frequent price hike?
I'm totally against this price hike. Because as I mentioned, Gabrielle Chanel wanted women to feel free on their outfit. And do you know about this necklace? These pearls are artificial, and it was her intention. In 1930s and 1940s, only a few women were able to work, and they couldn't make enough money to buy necklaces. So Chanel made an artificial pearl necklace to give women a chance to get jewelry without men's money. And how about the classic bag named 2.55? When she made the bag, she was like 72 years old. I mean, Chanel items should be able to be the sign of success. But let us think about the price now. Actually, we cannot buy them even though we are successful. They're just too expensive and they went over the line. And as a big fan of this brand, since Karl Lagerfeld passed away, I have had a doubt if the brand is still pursuing Gabrielle Chanel's philosophy or not. I'm not quite sure about that.
Well, like as you're speaking, I think I could feel how much sincere you are towards this brand. Now, let us turn to Professor Lee. Despite the price hikes that we've mentioned, it seems like people still want to buy the items, possibly even more eagerly. I'm not sure if this is an international phenomenon, but here in South Korea, we can easily see people, waiting in line outside department stores from the early morning hours to purchase some selected luxury items. Professor, can you help us understand why luxury brands regularly raise their prices and decrease their supply first?
First of all, they do raise the price because there are more demand. So it is a very simple, the law of the market, supply and demand. There is more demand, price may need to go. Because the main reason is the quantity of product that's sold in a specific market, in general, it is planned 1 year in advance. So it is difficult to increase the number of products to sell in a specific country. As the demand goes up, they have to raise the price. Very simple logic.
But despite that, rise in prices, why do you think the demand doesn't seem to, lessen?
That is all at the same time because the wealth of individual increases structurally. Every year, GDP increases by 3%. So on this planet, there are more people who can afford luxury products every year. So demand increases structurally.
All right. But some analysts have said that the recent increase in demand for luxury price items is due to revenge consumption. Revenge against COVID-19. People have saved up for vacation or some kind of splurge that had to be canceled due to the pandemic. What is your reaction on this analysis?
Yeah, the revenge consumption is a very, I think, a fancy media expression of delayed consumption. During the pandemic period, people didn't have to purchase enough because there was no enough occasion to show off. Because luxury product is mainly consumers to buy not only for functional benefit, but also for symbolic benefit. If there's no occasion to show off, the need goes down. So that delayed needs, now it is expressed as a raise of purchases that in terms of demand in the market.
Well, I totally agree that it could be a delayed instead of kind of a revenge kind of emotion. But what about you, Sejong? How has the pandemic impacted your collection? Did it prompt you to buy more or even less?
It actually didn't impact so much on my collection because I've never been a super rich person. I just work hard and make a good money from my work. So whenever I want to buy some luxury things, I make a plan and save money for them and buy them. So not very often, like twice a year or something. So it didn't mean so much on buying items, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the fashion shows of Paris Fashion Week or New York Fashion Week haven't worked very well as usual. So it was impossible to go abroad, and it was difficult to check out how the brands created their new collections.
Yeah, that is a pity, actually. Staying with Sejong, certain high-end luxury lines are not just highly priced, but they're also very scarce. Now, this means even if one has the money to buy a product, they can't just walk into the store and walk out without it. As a consumer, how do you think this plays into the value of the brand?
Well, actually, I've never been in the lines of the open run, and I cannot say it's good or bad or something, but I think we should think about the backgrounds of this issue. For example, there are many different kinds of bags in the headquarters of Chanel in Paris, and there are much less items in the stores in Korea, of course, and Korean branches import only a few items that are popular among Korean people. So if we buy luxury goods, depending on my real own taste, not going with the flow or not following the general trend, would the people have to wait for hours to get the same bags? We should think about the background.
Yes, I totally agree. And like we've kind of touched upon, scarcity is a classic marketing strategy. When it comes to luxury goods, it's especially, I think it's especially worse here in South Korea. Is it because we have higher demand, or is it the same in other countries, Professor?
Yeah, that is in general, people, as because they can show up. They have to live in a place where the popularity density goes up. Many people live together. This not only is a special phenomenon in South Korea, because our countries have a very high density. So other places in big cities around the world, the similar pattern and phenomenon we can find out. It is a popular density issue mainly. As well, the scarcity issue that we can hear that the word limited version edition nowadays. So company try to make a number of items available. Its number is limited to make it scale. So which can drive more people to have a need and a desire to buy actually.
So this is prompting more people to buy more goods. But in terms of economy, what do you think it has? What kind of effect does it have on the economic growth, like economic recovery rather, from the pandemic?
That is very similar to what I've told about the economic growth. That the world economy has been a little bit shrunk because of a pandemic. Now, more revenue are generated, so naturally, more people want to rush for purchase quite relatively expensive items that they were not able to afford last year or year before.
All right. Now, this certainly was a very interesting discussion, but I'm afraid we will have to wrap up at this time. Again, we apologize for the construction noise. Thank you so much, Sejong and Professor Lee, for your time. Hope to speak to you again in the near future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now let's go back to the weather with our weathercaster Lee Ji-hyun, who's at Gangnam Station.
Ji-hyun, tell us a little bit more about what's in store weather-wise this weekend. I hear it's going to be another cold one.
Good morning again, Mark. Well, you're half right, I should say, Mark. Well, thankfully, we have a warm-up coming up for this weekend. So those of you who want to have the last glimpse of autumn conditions should take an advantage of the warmth this weekend. But that means we need to stay warm until tomorrow morning. But for now, let's talk about today's weather conditions. Unlike we expected, here in the capital, we didn't see the sub-zero morning temperatures, but I think it feels a lot colder than what thermometer points at. In mountainous regions on Gangwon-do province is far colder. Seoraksan Mountain going down to below -10 degrees Celsius. Speaking of which, mountainous regions including Jirisan could see some snowfall instead of rain due to colder temperatures. But heavy snow advisory remaining in place on mountainous regions on Jeju Island. The rest of southern provinces will be seeing 5 to 10 millimeters of on and off light rainfall. It is a coldest start for most regions though. Daejeon starting out at day at 1 degree, Gyeongju at 2 degrees under sunny skies. Highs will be similar to slightly lower than yesterday. Seoul going up to 8 degrees, Gwangju at 10 degrees Celsius, so it's going to be chilly all day long. Double-digit afternoon highs finally return this weekend, and notice how warm it's going to be on Sunday at 16 degrees Celsius here in the capital. But there could be some morning showers to the west of central areas, so please be aware of that. The air, meanwhile, is getting drier, so please be careful anything that could start a spark. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that's all the time we have for this Friday edition of New Day at Arirang. We'll see you at the same time on Monday. I'm Kim Mo-gyan. Have a wonderful weekend.
And I'm Mark Broom. Thank you very much for watching. I'm going to go upstairs and speak to those construction workers straight after this. But I'll be back with more news at 10 a.m. Korea time in around an hour from now. Goodbye, and we'll see you next week.